Good evening. It is 7 p.m. in NYC and 4 p.m. in St. Helena, California in the Napa Valley. I'm Sam Kimball with Crush Wine Experiences, formerly New York Wine Events. Thank you all for joining us on this awesome Wine Wednesday and virtual day trip to wine country presented by Citi. We are here for the terroir, the vine, and the spirit of Tres Sabores Winery. They are doing an amazing job out there in California, pursuing craftsmanship and quality in 3 flavors in the heart of the world famous Napa Valley. Tres Sabores is a family-owned and woman-led winery that believes every stage of winemaking is an opportunity for artistry, from the earth to the vine to the glass. So our theme, appropriately so, is the terroir, the vine, and the spirit. And the quick background is that a creative spirit, the winery founder, had a moment of supreme confidence 20 years ago or so and envisioned leaving the corporate wine world and starting a winery in the Napa Valley. That was 1999, 22 years ago. She now describes that moment as an example of, quote, imposter syndrome, unquote. Which I find very humble on her part, given her resume. But today, Tres Sabores, 22 years later, is a very successful winery and a brand in the firmament of California wineries. A few winery stats: 25 acres of vines, 12 different wine selections made on average every year, 3,000 to 4,000 cases of wines produced per year on average. It is truly a boutique special winery in the heart of the Napa Valley. And we're really excited to be hosting Tres Sabores tonight. Welcome everybody, welcome one, welcome all. Please ask any questions or make any comments live along the way in the chat in Zoom. And we will answer those as we go on the fly during the session. And also, while you're in the chat, if you would right now, hit the chat and tell us where in the world you are tuning in from. This evening, we're going to travel virtually to St. Helena, California. Welcome. We got Rockaway Beach, California. We got New Jersey in the house. Love it. We're going to take a look. Let's take a look at the map of exactly where we're going. Welcome, Maryland. Love that. Rockland, California. Florida. Wow. Amazing. All right, let me show you guys where we're headed. This is a map of Napa Valley, and you'll see our guest has put this up for us. Thank you, Julie. And right there in St. Helena, which is sort of in the mid-northwestern part of Napa Valley, and you see Rutherford and St. Helena there. We're about an hour and a half from San Francisco. We're obviously a bit west of Sacramento, due west of Sacramento. That is very cool. So I'm gonna bring us back to the regular screen here. And I will also zoom out and give you a more geographical perspective. If you look at it from the perspective of Google Maps, you can see the map pin behind me, which there north of San Francisco, west of Sacramento, in the heart of the Napa Valley. So we're really excited for tonight's session. To summarize Tres Sabores, our guest, we'll talk more about this, but she likes to talk about how far do we go down the road of following the life of the vine to make the best wines we can. I want to do something that we did last week and we've done occasionally before, and that is show a 2-minute video to introduce our guest. Always fun to get a little bit of multimedia going here. So bear with me 1 second, and we are going to go live here with, whoops, that was the wrong screen. Bear with me a moment. So bring that back. Thank you for your patience. We are going to pull up a really cool video that kind of showcases the philosophy of the winery. So this is the right one. Here we go.
Tres Sabores, it's Tres Sabores. It's because sabor, the word sabor means flavor. And so, but when it's used in Spanish language, it's sort of like, muy sabroso. It's like kind of, very tasty. 3 flavors, but also 3 winemakers in the beginning. Because I had this crazy idea that I would have a different approach to my vineyard. It was a vineyard that had been planted it is a vineyard that had been planted in 1971. And I wanted to see what made it tick. So I had this crazy idea to hire 3 winemakers and have them each make their own wine from the same grapes. And nobody had ever, as a commercial project, and nobody had ever done that before. So that was great. So I hired 3 very willing and trusty souls, Ken Bernards, Karen Culler, and Rudy Zudima. And they all threw their lot in with me for 4 years. And they each got about 2 tons of grapes. And we made about 175 cases of each. The only caveat was, the only condition was we need to bottle on the same day. Other than that, they had carte blanche. And so it was really cool. And it was different. And we learned a lot about this vineyard, how it changes. We used to pick twice. Now we pick the Zinfandel alone 6 times. But it's fun. And it's for a small winery. It's also very manageable. It means things come in at dawn in 2 or 3 ton lots. And we have the lots that are the replants. We have the lots for the rosé. We have the lots just coming up the slope for the Zin. We have the lot that it's the edge of the alluvial fan, so there's less soil, so it ripens before the others, and you catch it. And for Zin, that's really incredible because you catch it before it's going to raise. Some of the cluster is going to raise in anyway, but you can catch it just at that point of individuality for Zin. That's the goal.
So I see you have.
So I just thought that was really fun to see. And I want to, without further ado, like to introduce our guest, Julie Johnson, the founder and the owner at Tres Sabores Winery. Welcome, Julie. It is great having you here on the East Coast with us from the West Coast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had forgotten that video existed, but I did a pretty good job explaining. I got myself a little complicated there with the start of this project. And now, 20 years later, it is still a joyful experience. And I want to say we are probably arguably no more than 3 weeks out from harvest right now. So we're kind of like, the tension is rising. And the first wine I hope people have, if you have any rosé, if you have any, Tres Sabores rosé, but if you have any rosé, this is what we're drinking first, because this is the first wine that's going to come in here on the property. We make this rosé from Zinfandel and Petite Sirah, and it's a true rosé, which means that if you take your typical, I don't know if you can see this right, your typical Zinfandel grape, this is rosé, right? It only gets maybe 15, 90 minutes on the skins in the press, and then it's fermented just like a white wine. About 3 or 4 weeks later, we start to pick for the red grapes. They're riper, of course, more potential alcohol, slightly lower pH, and a little bit slightly higher pH and a little bit lower acid. But right now we're thinking rosé, and it's rosé time in the world, right? Don't you think, Sam? I mean, I think it's one of those things where you say, I'm ready to start with oysters, and then I'm going to go to a barbecue grill, and I'm going to get together with some friends, maybe put some ribs on the barbie, and Zinfandel and Petite Sirah and rosé take you right through the whole.
Absolutely. It is definitely rosé time, and I like to always have food with any wine, including rosé, but rosé is one of those wines where take it to the beach, take it to the pool. You don't need any food pairing. It's great all on its own. So this broadcast finds you at the winery, at the vineyard that right there in Napa. Is that right?
Well, in Rutherford, actually. And yeah, this is the edge of my garden. We have 35 acres here, 12 acres of grapes here. And you're looking kind of at the back of the hillside we have olives here that were planted in the 1890s, grapes that were planted, like you said earlier, in 71, in 1989, and again, more recently over the last 20 years. So it's about 8 acres of Zinfandel, a couple acres of Cab, and an acre of Petite Sirah, a little bit of Petite Verdot. We'll get into that later, but it's where I've made my home since 87. It was the first vineyard for Frog's Leap, which John Williams and I started back in 1981. And it was very important for me living on this vineyard from 87 to start to get to the feeling where I could tease it apart. The grapes here prior to Tres Sabores time had all gone into a blend that had some beautiful vineyards, but the wine from this property sort of disappeared. And I wanted to tease it apart and discover what made it individual. You can say, oh, a lineup of tastes and flavors. For me, that's one of the reasons, I guess, why I have different labels for my wines. I don't make very much of any of the wines. So you don't find them in a supermarket usually, or rarely would you. And the idea is to just discover the individuality and to enjoy that. So picking so many times and picking for that special moment. With grapes, you have a little bit more time than you'd have like with an heirloom peach, where, anybody who's gone to a farmer's market and gets an heirloom peach, there's like maybe 12 hours when it's just absolutely pitch perfect. Grapes gives you a little bit more leeway, but this year, in back of me and around me, the vineyard has been it's being tested. We are in an unprecedented drought. We have had less than a third of the amount of rain that we have had ever, that people in recorded time. And so
that's in an area where it's pretty dry to begin with.
And California has basically always been a desert, but we do get rain between October and usually March or April. The last rain we had this year was less than 1/8 of an inch on March 12th. Doesn't do very much for us. And the other thing that's really important for people, I think, to understand is, so we are, or have been from the beginning, organically certified grown. We were the first vineyard, not the first to practice organics, but the first to certify as an organic vineyard. But we're also one of the vineyards that has kind of gone back to the future, and we are entirely dry farmed. So that means most of my grapes right here have been farmed without any irrigation at all for over 30 years now.
Wow.
So with the drought, but here's the really cool thing. My vines are looking remarkably well. In a warm, dry year, you would expect to have shorter shoots, smaller berries. And in general, that's what everybody wants, is more intensity of character and flavor, right? But this year, it's just it's drought on steroids. But my vines seem to be doing okay. And I think that's because of our low till, high mulch practices. Grapes are resilient. They're amazingly remarkable machines. And they dig their roots deep and broad. So there's lots of chance for interaction between the microbiome, all of those microorganisms and fauna and flora in the soil, and the roots of the grapes. So think of it as I think of it as a big mattress underneath the soil, in the soil below my vines. And they're sending messages. I don't know if anybody's read, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I think there's a book called In Search of the Mother Tree, something like that. There's something wonderful going on that's keeping my vines alive this year in this stressful environment. And of course, we've had several years with power outages, with terrible fires, not to mention drought. So we've all got our fingers crossed going into the next few weeks that everything is going to be okay. You can hear the wind around me. It's about 98 degrees right now, which is about as hot as we want it to get. And but we're going strong. We're optimistic. I'm determined to get through this year. It's been a crazy year for everybody.
Julie, we have a question. Have the fires affected any of the grapes in your vineyard this year and last year?
Not this year as yet. We haven't had a big fire in this year in our area. The two major fires in California right now are north and east of us. So knock on wood that we're not going to get into fire season right here as we did last year. Last year, there was a two profound fire incidents that burned quite a bit. And many friends lost wineries and homes and vineyard and so on. We don't know yet whether all of our red wines will pass muster and be able to be put into the bottle from 2020 because the smoke becomes sequestered. The phenolics, the chemistry of smoke taint is that crazy, ashy, bitingly bitter character sequesters itself in the skin of grapes. So I changed my winemaking last year. I got it through fermentation quickly. I reduced the amount of skin contact time, speeded up the fermentations. I would usually let them loll around and have fun with natural fermentations, speeded everything up. And I was very relieved to have gotten our analysis back from some experts in Australia saying that we're in really good shape, but we're still not sure whether we're going to be able to use all of our juice or not. We're not sure. That was us last year picking. We kind of double pick. We pick everything by hand and we do the first sorting right in the bin trailer like that. There's me, and the dogs have got to be right there, part of harvest. And then we bring it back. We bring all the grapes back. This is like maybe 5 acres below my house right here. We bring them all back and process them. But the first thing we do is sort them once again. So we sort them when we pick, we sort them into the bin, and then we sort them on the sorting table, which I have a picture of a little bit later too.
So that's right there on your property there.
That's right on our property.
And what's this here?
That's our property as well. That's in full leaf, and that's looking to the southeast from the property right there. So it's a great property. We know that grapes were planted here before Prohibition. It's about the grapes are, we think it was Petite Sirah because Petite Sirah came to the United States right around the 1890s when our farm was first planted in the modern day. But we have some wonderful heritage trees here. We even have a tree in back of me here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that big oak tree there is about 350 years old. So we're constantly paying homage to everything natural about this property. I think one of the great things is that you can't go very far without finding a bee or a bluebird or a red-tailed hawk or any number of wasps and butterflies and honeybee, natural native bees and honeybees as well. So it's all about creating an environment that emulates nature in every way that we can. We're agriculture. We have a right to be agriculturalists, but anything that we can do to say, let's partner with nature. Let's make sure that we're doing everything that we can. Another thing that we do is have sheep and goats here. So they're out munching away underneath the vines or up just as basic lawnmowers. Goats have a propensity to eat poison oak and blackberry, which is a really good thing in a vineyard next to a big mountainside here. So we have a good time. I mean,
now you were a founder at Frog's Leap, a famous winery, also in Napa Valley. Yeah.
Well,
that was the quote corporate wine job that you left. Many in our audience will recognize and know the Frog's Leap brand. What was that adventure like? And how do you compare and contrast what you're doing now with that? Because Frog's Leap is big production, a large case production.
Well, I think it's about 60,000 cases. I think one of my proudest, ongoing moments, I guess, is that my eldest son is involved with his dad at Frog's Leap. So I guess it's been a great journey. I have utmost respect and admiration for both Larry Turley and John Williams, who was my husband at that time. We started, John and I sold our motorcycle, and that's how we raised our capital to buy our first grapes. And
hold on a second. You sold a motorcycle, and which gave you the liquid capital to start growing grapes.
Right. To start buying.
It's a little more expensive these days. You'd have to sell more than one motorcycle, I think.
I think it was an R90S BMW for those people who are in the know. So back in 1981, we actually did pretty well. The lovely people at Spotswood sold us some Sauvignon Blanc, and then they kind of twisted our arm to buy Zinfandel as well. And John is a very skilled winemaker and sort of led the way. And then we realized, hey, wait a minute, we've started this winery. We don't have anybody there to be in the office. So I was a public health nurse and working in home health in this area, the nascent home health industry back in the early 80s here. And so I started working in the office, and I guess I was stopping in the office between seeing patients. And then when I started to see patients between working with distributors in the office, that's when I knew it was time to leave nursing. And then kids started to come along, and it's life. But for me, I think it's been one big serendipity factor. Maybe it's kismet, I'm not quite sure, but for some reason, this little girl from Palo Alto, California, that went to school back east, landed back here in the Napa Valley. I'll give you a little inside. I used to go to summer camp here a long time ago.
Wow.
Long before the Christian Brothers, in the 60s, 70s, they were still serving wine in these little 1-ounce goblets that, were just amazing. Well, I was Scarlett O'Hara in the 1964 Calistoga 4th of July parade, I'll have you know. So I have a lot of history here. And so the serendipity factor is that when John Williams and I were able to buy this beautiful property in 87 that had Zinfandel grapes on it. Everybody said, well, hey, it's Rutherford. It's home to Inglenook. It's John Daniels. It's Andrei Chelyshev. It's Beaulieu Vineyards. You should rip all that Zinfandel out and plant Cabernet Sauvignon. We're like, well, look, we love Zinfandel. We need Zinfandel. Yes, we're a little anachronistic, but we love Zinfandel. We're going to keep the Zin. And I'll tell you, I'm glad that we did. Zinfandel at one point was maybe well over 50% of what was grown in the Napa Valley. Now it's like 2%. So now you talk about interesting, unusual varieties of wine grown in the Napa Valley. Well, two of the wines that I grow, Zinfandel and Petite Sirah, qualify for that slightly less than usual sort of wine, even though they're heritage varieties that are made in the shade, literally, especially when it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer here. They seem to do very, very well. So I actually brought some with me. Well, Miguel cut some with me. Do you want to see where we're at right now?
Wow.
Can people see this? So
those are grapes that are growing we're growing right now on the vine.
We're unfortunately growing right now. Where we wanted to set up for this didn't turn out. It was too hot to be in the sun. So, but you can see what Zinfandel does very well. Maybe this is a better look. You can all see this. Zinfandel, this is in veraison. So Zinfandel has the aspect of ripening very irregularly. So you can see in any one cluster, and this will continue on through to the time when you're actually harvesting. So I could be tasting, and I might taste a very unripe berry, and I might taste a very ripe berry. My job is to pick these grapes before they dehydrate this year. My job that I see is to pick these grapes before they start to raisin. Raisins for me are for carrot salad, never for wine. And so you can quote me on that one. And the idea is to try to get to the point of this Zinfandel being evenly enough ripened that it is just that pop, just that wonderful time to pick. And that's why we pick the vineyard so many times. But you can see Now I want to tell you about the rosé because we were talking about that earlier. So let's get, this is one, if you can imagine, this is one big, beautiful cluster. So here's what we call the shoulder, if people can see this. So what we do for rosé, for every vine, we come in and we just clip off this shoulder.
Mhm.
And this is what we throw in the press to make rosé. So it's under, this will be in another 3 weeks. So pretend it's all purple at this point. We put this into the press with skin contact for about 90 minutes, and it turns out like this.
You'll pick this in August?
Yeah,
Wow.
we'll pick for rosé, for true rosé in August. And
'Cause
then
I will tell you, one of the things that's interesting to me is I obviously am not holding those grapes, but I'm looking at them. Those grapes in a warm climate situation like Napa are so much bigger. So I'm based in the North Fork of Long Island, which is a wine region. The clusters and the berries and the grapes themselves are way, way smaller right now in the season, and they won't be picked. And even when they're picked, they'll be smaller than these. They
Right.
won't be picked until like October.
Well, Zinfandel's bigger anyway, but what's left has a chance to ripen more evenly and to come into its own. And then about 3 weeks later, so beginning of September, we'll come through the same vineyard again, tranche by tranche by tranche, moving up the hill because that's how it ripens. And we'll pick the main cluster. And this will be higher in pH, a little lower in acid, but definitely higher in sugar.
Yep.
And we'll make the Zinfandel. So I discovered that doing this with the rosé, I started making rosé in 2011 when it was a very cold year, and I had to take fruit off in order to assure out of the vineyard, in order to assure that the whole vineyard would ripen up. And lo and behold, I started to pick this and I went, holy moly, this tastes pretty good. Let's just make a rosé. Well, having been in the Zinfandel business for so many years, I was quite a snob, I'll tell you, about white Zinfandel, right? Pink stuff, off dry, cloying, just not what I love. The Provençal is sort of my model for this. So what I realized that I could take and do a true real harvest, a true rosé, pick it early, and create that almost that walk into the disco sparkle ball effect of raspberry and strawberry and watermelon and a little bit of peach melba on the side, and create a rosé that was really scrumptious and really bright and jazzy. And then I could come in, and that helped my Zinfandel vines. So I could come in 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, and start picking the Zinfandel, and it tasted better. I feel that I've had a better Zinfandel because of making rosé. You're always in the vineyard, you're always refining Zinfandel, you're always working with the fruit, you're always positioning the shoots to guard against too much sun on the clusters. You're always monitoring what's going on. In organic vineyard, you're constantly positioning the shoots, working with the sunlight, working with the air, because the whole goal is to reduce the amount of even natural elemental sulfur, for example, that you spray on the vines to ward off mildew. So we're minimizing our inputs always and very mindful of what it takes with hands-on work with the vines to really bring it to literally to fruition. And very quickly, very soon, the next couple of weeks, I'll be out there tasting all these grapes. If you were to taste one of these right now, it really wouldn't be too bad. It's a little zippy, or actually quite zippy, but it's the grape's way of letting everybody, including me, but especially the birds, know that it's not ready to get those seeds yet. So my job is to get those clusters off before the grapes get to the birds get to the berries. I'm not quite sure, having lived with these vines for 30 plus years now, if they really understand that I'm there and that, hi, I'm the winemaker, I get to have your fruit, but I'd like to think that they do.
Now, let me ask you a question about the birds. So do you not put up netting?
At this point, we haven't had to.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of things going on here. We are right set up against the Rutherford hillside. We have a family that's been here building a nest, a family of red-tailed hawks forever. We have kestrels, small falcons. In the spring, we've put up about 50 bluebird boxes and swallow boxes. Those guys, the bluebirds and the swallows, are very picky and they're very territorial. So they tend to keep out a lot of the other birds. So we have actually kind of an inherent control. We'll see in a year like this, but in general, we have not had to net just because of the natural habitats that are created all around us.
If the berries are not that sweet yet, if they're very tart, will the birds leave them alone?
The birds, that's the whole idea. The birds leave them alone. So right now the berries have a very, so here's the idea again, white pulp, and that stays that way. And I don't know if you can see this, but here, I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
That's a very chartreuse looking seed. By the time it's ready to harvest, it will be more like a roasted pine nut. And it'll taste a little crunchy and a little pine nutty as well. Right now, seeds are very bitter. The birds the birds don't want anything to do with it right now. So the vines have kind of a natural protection against anybody attacking them now. We always say that when we hear the pileated woodpeckers coming down from the mountains, then it's probably ready to pick. They come and they are these huge birds about 18 inches long. Wow. And they light right up on the trunk of the vine and they peck up. And I let them because we only have one pair. This is only a place that's big enough for one pair of pileated woodpeckers, and they're so wonderful. So I hope everybody will come and see us when the pileated woodpeckers are here when we're picking the grapes. But
speaking of which, do you have a tasting room on site, and is Tres Sabores a place that people can visit?
Oh, we love guests. We have a century-old olive grove that people can sit under right next to the vine. I mean, this is a place where people come where I think they say, well, how close to the vines can we get? And we say, well, you'd be hard put not to be literally in the vines, tasting and walking in the vines. So we have a place under a beautiful old olive grove. We have a place in the back patio. Most of our tasting is outside. Rain or shine. Now we have a greenhouse and we open up the cellar doors and have people sit right in the barrel cellar to taste if it's rainy out. Should it be ever rainy again, ever. But in general, the hospitality here, I'm very proud of my team, and I try to get out and welcome people to the winery as well, because that's what I do. It's
all you need is the reservation.
We just need a reservation. Yeah. You just need a reservation. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, and hopefully.
Go ahead. And hopefully.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm getting all of this talk about the berries and the grapes. I'm getting excited to start tasting some wine. I don't know about.
I think that sounds great.
But I think we're going to focus on the 4 wines we put up on screen briefly a little while ago. The Sauvignon Blanc, the Rosé, the Zinfandel, of course, and the Pomegranates. So
I'm going to share a little bit. This is Rosé. This is my Ingrid and Julia Rosé. It is, we talked a little bit about this. This is named after my 2 favorite roses, Ingrid Bergman and Julia Child. It's this beautiful, if you're a foodie and you love wine and you have a garden where you can put a rose in, then why not Julia Child? So my individuality extends to total tongue in cheek. This is a random scan of tie-dyed duct tape, actually. But it makes a pretty one. I want to go and show you a little bit about the Sauvignon Blanc. So this is a beautiful place for Sauvignon Blanc. This is my dog, one of our golden retrievers in the vineyard. And you can see this is on Sonoma Mountain. So due west of here. Another hilltop. Sonoma Mountain is about 2,400 feet in height, but this is at about 600 feet. So you'd say, Sauvignon Blanc on a hillside? What does that taste like? Well, the answer is completely different from anything you've tasted before, because it's much more minerality. There's much more lemon and lime and tangelo and guava and white honeysuckle. Then there is some of the other characteristics that people might often attribute to to Sauvignon Blanc. This is one reason, is because usually Sauvignon Blanc grows like a weed. It's very, very vigorous vines. This is very spare. And the berries are tiny. The clusters are minuscule, and they get lots of sun. Sometimes I call this Sauvignon Blanc a sunny Sancerre as a result.
Now, those berries we're looking at, Julie, those berries we were just looking at, are they, how close to being harvested are they?
That was last summer, and probably about the first or second week of August. There's a big blackberry patch right around the corner from these vines. There are only 4 of us that get these wonderful grapes, and I only get 2 acres, just 16 rows. And we all kind of basically stand in line to make sure we get every last cluster. I don't even make 500 cases of this, but tiny little things, a lot of sunlight. So Sauvignon Blanc can take, can take sun. Just like with Zinfandel, we spend a lot of time opening up the canopy, taking away the leaves right around the clusters. On the east side, the morning sun side, the chemistry, the chemical changes that happen in the skins open up the flavors and make them very rosy, very sunny. That's the best way to describe it. If you've had Rieslings from a cold side of the hill and a warm side of the hill, then you know. This is picking about 6:30 in the morning. So this is actually a few weeks later. This is actually picking.
So September, you harvest these in September.
End of August last year, early September. No, we'll see. It's with such warmth this year, it just depends on what's going to happen. But I think we could talk about then, if we talked about the Sauvignon. Oh, so what you might find in the Sauvignon Blanc, hopefully a little bit of melon, hopefully a little bit of white nectarine, hopefully a little bit of, I guess we talked about how much we love, the other day, Sam, we talked about how much we love food. And there's nothing better than either a soft shell crab with Sauvignon Blanc with a little tomato, or I spent quite a bit of time in Maine, and I used to cook grill scallops very lightly with a little butter and a little dash of chili, and then some zest of orange and lemon and lime. Boy, that's great with Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc just, and then we have our Dungeness crab out here in the wintertime, which is just superb. So I'm always in a crab or scallop or fish mode when I'm thinking of Sauvignon Blanc. But I'm also, when I'm lazy about cooking, I'm also in a just simply goat cheese or mac and cheese mode. There's a local pizzeria that makes pizza with bay shrimp, lemon, cresenza cheese, which is this wonderful creamy buttery cheese, and a little bit of herbal thing. And we just, that's the best thing. You can just
that's when the Sauvignon Blanc becomes a porch pounder, where you're just polishing it off. By the way, so my favorite, and I can't take credit for this, it was a winemaker in the North Fork last year. My favorite, when you are too tired or too lazy to cook, and Sauvignon Blanc pairing, is microwave popcorn with lemon zest. Just grate some lemon zest on top of the microwave popcorn and have it with Sauvignon Blanc. It is great. And
add a little grating of really great Reggiano Parmesan cheese to that.
Yep.
That is piece de resistance. We have, for those of you who love movies, we have a huge outdoor screen here, and we show evening movies. We're doing in fact, a benefit for a group of musicians. They're called Monkestra, and John Beasley is the jazz artist, the entrepreneur, and he is a recent Grammy Award winner. So he's coming to the winery to play and to introduce his wines and to introduce his movies about his group and raise some money for his group as well. So I know we're pressed for time. This is our Zinfandel. This is actually a real picture, believe it or not. This is not Photoshop. This is my son's hand, who was spending part of the pandemic in Hawaii. Poor
I was
kid.
going to say, this is Zinfandel in Hawaii.
This is Zinfandel in Hawaii, which, like, who would know? But, like, why not, right? Why not? I mean, I guess I would have to say Zinfandel goes really well with poke bowls, and in addition to duck, or in addition
Really? Like a tuna poke bowl?
Actually, no kidding. And I'll go back here, because for those of you who want to go back to what do you love about Zinfandel? We've been talking about Zin. This is the UC Davis and Noble aromatic wheel for Zinfandel. We're all here because of Zinfandel advocates and producers.
Yes, we are.
And all I would say is that you can find this, I think, on the zinfandel.org site. But all of these wonderful, just think of Zinfandel as a cornucopia of berries: blackberry, boysenberry, blueberry, cherry, black raspberry, golden raspberry, anything berry. With the 3 golden retrievers, I know what I don't want. I do not want wet dog.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I've discovered that I love so much about my Zinfandel is that it's pulled back. It doesn't have as much alcohol. It's certainly not a jam bomb. It has more nuance of spice and warm spices. So where I get into loving and this is not me, this is my vineyard. This is what dry farmed, organically grown Zinfandel. This is what it wants to be. And it has quite a bit of this wonderful, I would say, white and black pepper, Aleppo pepper, which is kind of a chili pepper. There's a little bit of cardamom, which is not on here, but a little allspice, and just warm, savory spices about it. And that, to me, is a Zinfandel style that I'm just so glad that my Zinfandel. But getting back to what a wine, any wine, especially this Zinfandel with quite a bit of natural acidity, what it can tolerate is those umami characters. So right down here, you see one of the wonderful things. I wouldn't say it's in my Zinfandel, a soy character, but because it has nice acidity, it can tolerate and actually enjoy and celebrate flavors that involve the soy, chocolate, coffee, cocoa, toasty, not burnt toast, but toasty kind of characters. I only use about 30% new oak on any of my reds, Sam. And so I'm trying to buoy the fruit, celebrate the fruit without having any oak knock it over its head. It's not high enough in alcohol. It's not boisterous enough to warrant too much oak, but a little bit of oak just helps to sort of give it just a little bit of boost and a little bit of more, I guess, sumptuous character.
Now, does this Zinfandel have a big sort of classic California Zinfandel jammy flavor and body, or is it a little bit more nuanced?
No, it's quite a bit more nuanced. There's one of our sheep, by the way, chomping on cover crop. This is the vineyard. This is 50-year-old Zinfandel with cover crop in the early spring. This is a little bit later. You can see daikon radish and bell beans. And this is what you do when you're trying to have the soil be replenished, the vines be naturally nourished. This is the early in the life of Zinfandel, about March. Here we are about March. Here we are about the first week of June with the early set. Here we are with the vines about a month and a half ago, just starting to grow. Here we are, basically what you just saw on the screen with veraison. Here you are, the same vines kind of ready to pick in the early fall in September and sorting on the table. And here, whoops, that's a bad picture. Uh-oh, I think are you still there? Did I freeze? No, okay. So we spend a lot of time, just to kind of try to answer your question a little bit better, we spend a lot of time taking what I would call overripe or raisin fruit out. We spend a lot of time sorting out and away fruit that's underripe, and we don't crush anything. So what that means is that all of these clusters go right into our destemmer, and then without crushing, without opening up the skins mechanically, they go right into one of these 3/4 top bins. And everything that we do is hand macerated. So here's my wonderful assistant winemaker, Miguel Garcia, and he is doing this hand maceration of the berries right into, on top of each other, just to keep mixing that color. I think that one of the things that's wonderful about this Zinfandel is that it doesn't have the over macerated, too over the top jammy character. And part of it is because of this practice, not just destemming, letting a little bit of even carbonic maceration, carbonic fermentation, whole berry fermentation take place. Because this kind of hand maceration, you don't begin to open up quite all the skins, and you might not finish opening up all the skins until just you actually put it in the press after you're done with fermentation.
So now, Julie, what is your preferred meal with this Zinfandel?
Well,
look at you.
Sam, I just happened to have a menu suggestion right
by the
there.
way, everybody, that was not planned.
That was not planned.
I was just asking my favorite question, which is, what can I eat with this great wine?
Well, this just happens to be a dish, during COVID dish that I sourced from Mustard's Grill. And I would usually say duck or Mustard's rabbit. Mustard's does rabbit better than anything else, and duck as well. But this just happens to be an incredible chicken with some beans and artichokes. And you can see, not afraid of a little roasted lemon in there and some spice and some herbs. This just makes the Zinfandel, the savory nature of Zinfandel, come out. Anything that's roasted or barbecued for sure, but don't overlook the possibility of Zinfandel to brighten up poultry of any kind. I raise guinea hens here at Guinea fowl here at the winery. All of our stems and seeds and skins go to make compost with the manure that's generated by those sheep that you saw and the guinea hens. And so we're always looking at, what are the things that we can grow that can contribute to all of this. But the savory nature of Zinfandel is definitely what comes through here.
See, I thought you were going to go full on red sauce pizza steak, and you took a left turn on me there.
Well, I guess there would be another thing. I live really close to Chinatown. Well, we live close to San Francisco, but if you're in New York or, Boston, wherever, there's a wonderful, Washington, D.C. is wonderful Chinatown, and go there and, treat yourself to the full enchilada, the full Peking duck show, with everything that you do with Peking duck, 5-spice powder and Zinfandel, that's like made in the shade.
So Peking duck and Zinfandel is a thing. Wow.
Absolutely perfect.
Wow.
Also pomegranate mole. My good friends in Houston, the Hugo's Wine Group with Hugo's and Backstreet Cafe and Xochi. Hugo, the chef, did a pomegranate mole. I believe It's on the website, and they suggested the next wine with that, just because it's not only Zinfandel, the Por qué no, not only is it Zinfandel, but it's Cabernet and Petite Sirah.
So it's a blend of 3 grapes.
It's a blend of 3 grapes. Actually, 4 grapes, a little bit. We have a little bit, this year, 1 barrel of Petite Verdot in there as well, just for the craziness of having a little bit of Petite Verdot.
I'm gonna steal your screen for a second here and show everybody this. I love the label. I love this brand. I love the name, the Por qué no.
Thank you. Why not? Why not? Well, it came about to why not, because if you recall my 3 winemaker project, and that lasted for 4 years, and they taught me how to make wine, basically. And a wonderful man came into my life about that time, John Inglesberger, who had been making wine for also since the mid 70s. And he said, you can be a winemaker. And so I said, why not? And my winemaker said, hey, just put all those grapes together. Why not? And let's see what happens. And we all went, ¿por qué no? So the answer to the question that just popped up on the screen is it's a blend of Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, Petite Sirah. Remember, there ain't nothing petite about Petite Sirah, and Petit Verdot. So in 2000, the first year.
So it's actually four grapes.
Four grapes, but just like 1% of Petit Verdot. In 2000, when we first made this, it was very unusual to have Petite Sirah and Cabernet blended. Now it's not unusual at all. It's very unusual, and still is, to have Cabernet and Zinfandel blended. So we just decided, why not? I mean, literally, ¿por qué no? Why not? Why not have another glass of wine? And
so this has got to be a really big, bold red.
This is pretty big and bold, although really not, again, not super jammy. This is the wine that I make the most of. I make about 1,000 cases when I can. And still it's not over the top jammy. And I wouldn't be afraid of it. You know, I wouldn't be afraid of, oh gosh, this is going to overwhelm any bite of food that I would ever try. This is something, of course, wonderful barbecue wine, but wonderful mole with quail wine, wonderful, and making that mole, I'll tell you, took over my kitchen for 2 days. But it was
making mole. That is not a trivial pursuit. Making
mole. It is not. It's very, very serious cooking. But one of my loves in life is our pomegranates here, and this won't really be ripe until October. But I grow about 120 pomegranate trees here for many reasons. One, they're great habitat. Two, the blossoms, you can see that beautiful blossom bring in hummingbirds and bees. And then we have a big harvest party at the end of every year where we drink pomegranate margaritas. And in general, pomegranates were brought to California 400 years ago, and there's a great history all over the world of pomegranates. But pomegranate molasses, pomegranate with lamb, are great foils in general for no, or for the Zinfandel. You have some Zinfandel to taste. Shall we taste this together and see what you think? If it's not too jammy,
Does anybody have the Zin with them?
Most people probably won't, but I hope you will. I hope you've invited. We're actually, some people might have been encouraged to order the 18. This is now the 19. We're very, our wine club customers have been very generous this year. And so we're about to launch the 2019. It's deep, Petite Sirah, these great old, almost California grapes. I mean, I guess, where did this start? Croatia, right? But it's really become California's grape, and it really has grown here. And so my guy, with a little bit of wild yeast fermentation, dry farmed, it really has its own distinctive character, and it shows up. So if the Zinfandel, go with me here for a second, if the Zinfandel is my jazz club, very refined and fun, and I guess
sophisticated,
a little bit unusual. This guy is my salsa party.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was a rock concert.
Well, no, it could be that too. More salsa party.
Yeah.
But the Zin has the purity. I guess the Porcino just has it's hilarious. It's just fun. People just smile. Like, why wouldn't we be enjoying wine and food together?
I love the idea of that, and I am looking forward to coming out to Rutherford and lifting a glass of Porcino at the winery.
Yeah, we would love to have you here. We'd love to have any of you. A lot of things have happened in the valley over the last year and everywhere, right? But we've become experts in who has the best to-go food and who who's starting up and having
Well,
doing a good job.
the pandemic has changed the winery business, and in some ways, you know, for even for the better. It was always great, but there some of the innovations and the trends about people coming and, you know, sort of their whole reservation, you know, dynamic of visiting wineries now, I think has really kind of elevated the experience, which is great, you know.
I'd like to think that we've always been by reservation, but we
You were ahead of the curve then.
well, but we've always, because we're small and we have very little staff, and so every visit has to be special, because for one, we're a mile and a half off the road. You would never expect to find us back here. When you look from Highway 29 west, you don't really see anything. We're really tucked into the hills. So it's a nice surprise to find a farm where you can see every aspect of the farm. We don't hide back. You can see the tools, and you can see the tractor, and you can see the crimper, and walk out in the vineyard and taste the grapes, especially right now. This is the time, like I said, when the grapes, I wanted to make sure that I showed you actually, everybody, the difference. This is Cabernet. You can see very small berries. This is Zinfandel. See the difference? How much that is. So I wish I could have you here. They're just, as they're turning color like this, they're really just starting to taste like something.
If this was a bar fight, the Zinfandel was going to win.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. They're pretty big. I'll tell you, the biggest cluster of grapes that I've ever picked was over 3 pounds, and it was Petite Sirah.
Wow.
So like I say, ain't nothing petite about
No, Petite Sirah is not petite.
Yeah.
Well, Julie, this has been great. I want to thank you so much for doing this, and it's so great to see you at the farm in the vineyard. And I want to raise a glass with you and make a quick toast and say it takes people to grow it, it takes people to make it, but most importantly, for everyone watching, and thank you guys for tuning in, it takes people to enjoy it. So cheers.
Good cheer, everybody.
Thank you.
Come and join us. Stay safe, and enjoy a glass of wine. Smile on yourself, and hopefully we'll see you here in Rutherford before too long.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thanks,
have a great rest of the day, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. We're going to southern Italy, to Apulia in southern Italy, where they grow Primitivo, which is the cousin grape of Zinfandel.
Very cool. I'm going to have to listen in myself. That'll be wonderful.
It'll be fun. Thanks so much, Julie. Be well.
Thanks for having us. Okay.
Stay safe, everybody.
Cheers. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.